Has something disrupted your baby's sleep and you're having a hard time getting it back on track? Not to worry, there are a lot of things you can do or not do to help get your baby sleeping well again. My name is Bridget, and since 2015, I've been helping families get their sleep under control. That often means going in home or working virtually and just helping them make the necessary changes to bring sleep back. And I can help you too. The common sleep disruptions that we hear about are often teething, illness, travel, a change in daycare room, a change in routine at all, sometimes moving. It could be a new sibling or a big change in the family. All this to say, these are all normal parts of life. And let's face it, we're going to come across some of these things, and it can and often does disrupt our baby's sleep. So, what can we do about it? Let's assume you have a good default. You have a good default, a good baseline where bedtime is pretty predictable. Your stretches at night are pretty good. Everyone's getting reasonable sleep. And then you're faced with one of these situations, right? They're cutting their molars, or they've had to change to a new daycare, or maybe just starting daycare after being with their parent all the time. That's a huge adjustment, and that can show up with sleep disruptions sometimes. So as a rule, we like to say, keep whatever you can the same. So if you can keep the bedroom the same where your little one sleeps, the timing similar, the routine itself similar, to keep it as consistent as you can so that they know what to expect and they know what is coming their way when it comes to sleep. It can often feel really tempting to introduce changes to sleep when something big is going on. And I'll give the example of a new sibling coming home, or adjusting into daycare and now they're sleeping in a cot in a room with others when they're used to sleeping with you at home. And that can seem really impossible, but they always figure it out. It's pretty amazing how resilient our kids can be. Assuming they're not, terribly sick, you would try to keep these pieces the same as best you can. Because in fact, even though things might be changing outside of their usual, whether it's the number of naps they're having per day, cutting a new tooth, or starting that new daycare, let's say, they will feel safest and secure with the same sleep hygiene happening at home. So we don't want to rock the boat unless we absolutely have to. So when is a time that we need to pause and be really accommodating to these needs in the night and sort of let slide some of these sleep boundaries that we have? It's a rare situation, but it would mean really sick, so high fever, really congested. If you're feeling uneasy in any way about their health or how they're doing, you would, of course, be there with them if that means bringing a bed into the room with them and you're sleeping on the floor, let's say, or you bring them in with you, whatever you feel safest about. And we'll often hear this worry, I'm nervous if I do these things while they're sick or while they're teething, whatever the case may be, that now all of our sleep hygiene is going to go down the toilet because now they're going to really prefer to sleep with me. And I'm here to say that you can be responsive, you can be accommodating to these needs that are happening in the moment, still keep what sleep hygiene you can, consistent as best you can. But then when they're better, or let's say you've returned home from the trip and it's that very night, you get right back into your sleep routine as usual. The slippery slope can be bending the rules, let's say, or bending what we're trying to establish as a bedtime routine for every potential teething pain, or they had a little runny nose, now I'm gonna, forget it. And then you end up never really sticking to any sort of great sleep hygiene. So as a rule, you want to keep as much the same as you possibly can, bringing the tending into them. If it's responding with pain relief or a remedy or an extra feed or a nurse at night, depending on how old your little one is, you can do those things while still keeping sleep a priority and maintaining a safe sleep space. Just to highlight, that good default we're going for is good sleep timing, consistent space for sleeping, so they sleep in the same space when they're home for the most part, and responding in the same way every time. If you respond differently each time, they might not know what to expect, and it can be tricky to hope for good, lengthy sleep. So by default, we want good timing, good sleep environment, and a consistent response. So that way, when these one-offs happen or these regressions that they might go through because of common sleep challenges like daylight savings or like teething pain or new daycare, whatever it might be, is your default is smooth, is steady. And so when we veer off to offer that pain relief or to offer that extra feed in the night, or maybe to pull you into my bed because you're fevering tonight, or whatever feels safe for you, really, then when they're feeling better, you get right back to it and you don't bend as much at that point. You really just want to get back to it. We'll often get asked, do we stop sleep training if our little one's teething? And the short answer is no. You may already know by now, teething lasts for months and even years. They're always working on a tooth, they're cutting a tooth. So I think it's fair to respond with pain relief, with a remedy, with that extra feed, whatever you think is going to help soothe your little one, while still maintaining control over where they sleep, how they're falling asleep. It's okay to have both of those things. When would we sort of scrap it all together? I like to say almost never. We want to really always have the same sleep routine going on. It's so necessary for all of us to be able to lay your head down and get a good night's sleep. So the only reason you would really pull them from the bed or do something completely different is if they're very unwell. Fever, congested, any concern about breathing. I mean, at that point, you definitely want to speak with your caregiver, of course. But when it comes to sleep, you really want to pull out all the stops and be as responsive as possible. You don't want to give them space or let them be to sort of, sleep train when they're not feeling well. We always want to make sure they're feeling at their absolute best. Sleep disruptions can come in many shapes, ways, and forms, and they can be so frustrating, but they're a natural part of life. We can't avoid them. And in fact, I think it's really anxiety inducing and stress inducing to be really focused and trying to be hyper vigilant about these future disruptions that are coming your way. So if you're sitting here thinking, oh, I know we're getting ready to drop to one nap and that's going to be terrible and I'm stressed about it and I'm going to meet trouble halfway. Or we have this trip coming up, it's across a time zone and now I'm afraid this is going to be terrible. While being cautious and being prepared is great, remind yourself this important truth. We cannot force anyone to sleep, right? We can't prevent all night wakings, but we can control how to respond. And that's always where your power lies, really. And especially when there's a need going on and they are having disrupted sleep and they're looking for you for that comfort, for that reassurance, whatever that might be, then it's very fair to do that. But you don't have to throw away all your sleep hygiene to do that. You can really do both. Our children rely on us to set safe and healthy boundaries around basically everything, and sleep is no different. It's beneficial for you to hold the sleep hygiene in place while still responding to these needs, being understanding with these disruptions and saying, okay, you had a crummy nap that day because we were adjusting to daycare, or a kid woke you up at daycare today, whatever it might be, or maybe someone stopped by the house and woke them up early, which is so frustrating, but we're going to be understanding and know that means you'll need an earlier bedtime. That means you might be a little fussier today. So I'm going to make sure I know that. And I'm not going to try to control it because that's not something that's within my realm of control, right? I can't control that. I can control how I time your sleep, where I put you to sleep, and how I respond to you. And that's a loving thing that a parent can do, whether they are going through a sleep disruption or coming out on the other end of it. Remember, the next nights are going to go by anyway, so you might as well do something. If sleep is not going well and it's more than just a brief disruption, we are here to help you. We've been helping families for almost 10 years now, and we're ready to help you too. You can start tonight. Book at betterbedtime.ca. If you check out below this video, you'll see links to resources that we have available. You can also book tonight 24/7 at betterbedtime.ca. Sleep well.